This happened in 2019. I was in my second year of college and living in a townhome about a 10-minute walk away from campus. I lived with 2 other girls at the time, but they were all back at their parents' house for the holiday. I work in healthcare and was working Christmas this year. For a little bit of backstory, there used to be 4 of us living there, but one girl had moved out due to issues with her boyfriend. He was a real jackass who abused our kindness on allowing him to stay there. He was only supposed to come every so often, but he basically ended up living there. We told her she needed to kick him out after an incident with him one night after he got physical with her, and verbally abusive toward the rest of us. She wouldn't listen though, and we told her we would have to talk to our landlord then. Long story short, she ended up moving out and left on pretty bad terms with us. On another side note here, I have been in physically and mentally abusive relationships before, so I understand how things may have been going for her. I tried my best for 2 years at that point to help her open her eyes to the abuse and get her away from him. At this point though, it was affecting everyone, and we didn't feel safe with him there, so she moved out in the end. Okay, so back to the story. It was Christmas Eve and I worked the next day, so I was getting ready for bed. Locked all the doors, turned the lights off. I went downstairs to where my bedroom was. I was scrolling on TikTok for about an hour. It was Christmas Day at this point, when I heard what sounded like chairs in the kitchen move. The kitchen is right above my bedroom. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors next door, as we share the same walls and sometimes they can be quite loud. But I remembered one of them texting me, asking me to bring in a package they were expecting while they were all gone from home. The noise was short-lived, so I just brushed it off at first. Next thing I know though, my bedroom door was being opened slowly. In this moment I got a flashback and remembered my second grade teacher telling us about the time someone broke into her house. She acted as if she were asleep so that if they were just there to rob her, they wouldn't feel the need to hurt her if she saw them. I realized in the next second though that my freaking phone screen was lighting up my scared, jaw-dropped face. I couldn't exactly act like I was asleep. Where I'm laying in bed faces directly to the door, so we were just looking right at each other. There I was laying in my bed, shitting myself, while this guy had one foot in my bedroom with the door cracked open. It felt like an eternity, but in reality was probably more like 10 seconds of us staring at each other. He slowly took his foot out and closed my door. I sat there just in complete and utter shock. I couldn't make out what he looked like, as my eyes were adjusting to the dark again from the phone screen. All I could see was he had a backwards baseball cap. I knew I had to call the police, but my anxious ass knew that if I called, it would alert my parents' phones that I had done so. Me being dumb as hell at the time, I thought, well, I don't want to make them worry. Also, I was scared he might still be somewhere in the house, and I didn't know what he would do if he heard me calling. I texted the guy I was seeing at the time and told him, some random guy just broke into my house and came into my room. He snapped me out of it and told me to call the police, so I did. The dispatcher asked me if I felt comfortable to go unlock the front door for them, so they didn't have to break it down. I told her, no way. I don't care if the door is broken, I'm not going up there alone. A couple minutes later, I saw flashlights shining through my window. I heard the police knocking at the door and announcing themselves. They got in and asked me where I was. I came out of my room and they came and got me. They told me to wait on the back porch while 2 of them searched the house and 1 stayed with me. It was like that shit you see in the movies where they have their guns and turn the corner with their partner and everything. They didn't find anyone, and I said nothing looked like it had been taken. They even tried to get fingerprints, but were unsuccessful in the end. Then they started asking me questions and informed me that the back door was unlocked and had no signs of being broken. I told them I'd locked it though. Luckily, the guy I was talking to stayed with me that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept having to go check every inch of the house over and over. I placed chairs under all the door handles on the front door, back door, and my bedroom. The next day, I informed our landlord, and she refused to come out and change the locks. She never ended up getting them changed for the rest of the time we lived there. Every time I go to bed now, I triple check all the doors have been locked. Doesn't matter where I am. I also have a dog now, and he helps my anxiety of intruders, as well as my recent purchase of a Ring doorbell. I believe it was our old roommate's boyfriend. I think they may have made an extra key for him because he was basically living there. But I don't understand why he didn't do anything to me, the house, or our belongings. If it were someone random, I don't know why they wouldn't have done what they intended, and that could have been many different possibilities. I don't know what their intentions were that night, but to the man who broke into my house on Christmas Eve, let's not meet again. I've been on this sub for a couple years now, had my own couple let's not meet moments, but for some reason tonight, I just needed to share what happened. For context, I'm in school still and work for my family member on certain weekends at a local college selling concessions at the stadium. It's about once or twice a month, and the stadium is off toward the edge of town. Well, it's a Friday night. I had just gotten out of school and had to go straight to work. I get to work for 4 hours, a half shift tonight. And my boss tells me we need more spoons for tomorrow's event. We sell ice cream and these events have like 5,000 plus people at them. I said okay, I'd go grab them on my way home. The only store open with heavy-duty spoons is all the way on the other side of town. I still wanted to meet up with some of my friends and mess around that night. I decided to take the faster but more sketchy way around the outskirts of town. I live in a relatively weather bipolar state. It snowed last night, but I figured the roads would be fine enough even if they weren't plowed. I took off to the store and the first 5 minutes go by and nothing's wrong. I haven't seen a single car or any buildings the entire time, but keep in mind it's approaching 9 p.m. and I'm on the outskirts of town. No one usually really takes this way unless they really have to. All of a sudden though, I see something out of the corner of my eye. It looks like a man, roughly 5'8" I'd say, wearing shorts, a t-shirt, and a backwards hat. He's in the ditch walking through the snow when it's all of 10 degrees out. My immediate thought was to pull over to help, but I was on the phone with my mom at the time, and she warned me not to, as some things had happened before in this town. For example, a couple years ago, a college girl was kidnapped and found dead, rolled up in a rug in 2014. I still considered stopping for a moment, but for some reason I convinced myself not to. I wasn't really worried about anything. I was a young dude driving a big pickup truck, the last type of person anyone would want to harm, right? I passed the man going about 40 miles per hour. Like I said, the roads aren't the best. I drove not even 500 feet past him, and immediately, a car that I did not see at all before turned on and pulled out of a field entrance off the road and started to follow behind me. At first, I thought I was just focused on the man in the ditch and didn't see a road. I later found out that there was not even one there. Now again, I was not super worried. I've watched my fair share of crime movies and read plenty of stories, and I didn't feel it was a threat yet. I start to approach the town again and have to take some turns to get to where I'm going. I turn left. The car turns left. I turn right. The car turns right too. I go around this roundabout and skip my turn and go twice as no one else was there. The car followed me exactly. At this point, I started to worry a little. Maybe they just needed to go to the store also. I then pulled up to a stop sign. I wasn't on the best side of town either, may I add, and turned without my turn signal. The car followed behind me. Now at this point, I should have went straight to the police station, but I still didn't think of that. I was 2 miles from the store now, and there would be plenty of people there. I took a few more turns, and the car continued to follow close behind. I completely blew a stop sign at a non-busy intersection, and the car did a quick stop and go and caught up. At that point, I was only 2 turns until the store. I turned in, and the car turned in also. The store also had a gas station, so I pulled there first to act like I was getting gas. The car pulled off to the side of the road in between the station and the store and sat there waiting. I waited for about 10 minutes and the car still didn't make any moves. At that point, I was starting to get really worried. I was a young kid alone at night near the bad side of town. I called my friends I was supposed to meet up with later on and gave them the license plate for worst case scenario. I then took off to the store. As I crossed the street, the car pulled in straight behind me. I was freaking out, not knowing if I should call the cops or not. I go and park as close as possible to the store. The car parks 3 rows behind me and a couple down. It's getting late at this point, and the store was closing soon. There were only a couple others in the lot. I turned my truck back on and go to park on the complete opposite side, get out and bolt inside the store. I'm not exactly super overweight, but I'm not like a skinny stick either. I'm about 6'1" and 200 pounds. Who would want to fight me? I get spoons and take my time in the store. I go to call my friends to walk back outside, and I discover my phone is now dead. I looked out the sliding doors and noticed there was suddenly a white van parked next to my driver's side. It looked like no one was in it, but the back windows were completely covered and it was running. Very big red flag. I ran to customer service and explained everything. They didn't believe me, thought I was some young kid just messing around. At the time, I did not see the original follow car, but no way in hell was I going outside with that kidnapper van next to my truck. After waiting for what seemed like hours, but was really only 30 minutes, the van pulled forward, and the original car appeared from the side of the building. From the in-store Starbucks window, I saw them talk, and then both drive off. I waited another 10 minutes and dashed outside. I sped to my friend's house, and when I got there, I parked in his garage. My one buddy asked me why there was a big orange mark on my tire. My heart just sunk. When I was inside, the follow car must have marked my tire. After inspecting the rest of the truck, I found a small pipe dropped in the bed of my trunk surrounded by snow. It was about 2 inches wide, and I'd say about 18 inches long, wrapped up in duct tape. It was obviously not mine. I was alone, no phone, scared, in a part of town I'm not familiar with. I tried to laugh it off, but now that everyone was asleep, I couldn't help but think about what would have happened if I'd walked outside. I've always been sort of ego-boosted on the fact I'm a chubby fat dude no one would want to mess with, but after tonight, I realized just about anyone can be targeted. Legit like 3 people know this story because I don't talk about it. The events happened 13 years ago, and it still messes with me to this day, even though I'm not in any sort of danger now. When I was in college, I got super depressed and stressed out near my junior year. I was always super into school, but I just started slipping near the end of my college terms. It threw me off real bad. I'd never experienced failing at subjects before. It threw me into this ridiculous stress. I graduated and figured everything would go away with that, but instead I found myself feeling very mentally foggy. My sister knew how bad off I was from the last years of school, so she hatched a plan to surprise me. I always wanted to go to Miami growing up. I know how lame that sounds. But you gotta understand, being a girl who grew up in the Midwest and even went to college there, it was super exciting looking to me. Up to this point, I had traveled but never went anywhere as lively or big as Miami always seemed to be. My sister planned a 5-night vacation with me as a way to get me out of this mental fog, and also to celebrate in our own way me graduating college. I was honestly super excited. A few months passed by and it was now time for the trip. We got there and the first few nights were incredible. We hit up the restaurants I had on my little list of places to try and spent many hours by the ocean. I was never a real big party girl. Up to this point in my life, I was drunk maybe twice. My sister was the opposite. She was in nearly every party that happened in our hometown. She got bored of going back to the room so early every night and convinced me to go to a nightclub with her for the first time. I farted a bit but let my guard down because I was feeling great for the first time in a long time, and I wanted to try some new things. It was a Saturday night downtown in the middle of summer. We get to this nightclub and the line is legit wrapped around the whole building. It was massive. We waited in line for what felt like forever before we were finally let in. I walked in the door and felt like I got shot because of the loudness. My sister dragged me to the bar and ordered some shots of some drink with a funny name. Again, I decided to just let my guard down and try new things. As more shots went down, I decided that would be the theme of the night, trying new stuff out. I was aware of how boring I was, and was, in my opinion, in the most exciting place in the world. After 45 minutes into dancing and drinking, I became very drunk, borderline blackout. I was very sloppy drunk and was well aware of it. I found myself laying on a couch thing in the upstairs area overlooking the dance floor as my sister was dancing with some guys. As I sat there trying to consciously sober myself up, I realized how badly I had to pee. I brought myself up to a sitting position on the couch to stand up and walk to the nearby restroom. As I sat up, a massive man quickly sat close to me. I could feel his leather pants pressed on my leg. He was huge, absolutely over 6 feet tall, and looked like some sort of bodybuilder. Admittedly, he was very good looking, but I was so wasted I wasn't even trying to flirt. I just really had to find the bathroom. He smiled at me and yelled over the music, something like, "Leaving so soon?" I remember nervously laughing and attempting to get up, but he grabbed onto my dress and pulled me back down to a sitting position next to him. His smile went away immediately, and he spoke in a very deep tone. "I don't remember telling you that you were allowed to leave, bitch." Even though I was very drunk leading up to this, I felt like this sobered me up within seconds. I had never had someone talk to me like that before. But I wasn't just going to allow this guy, no matter how much bigger he was than me, to do that to me. I attempted to stand up again and he did the exact same thing, but much more aggressively. I thought I was insanely rude, but I wasn't afraid because of how many people were around me. He tapped my heels with his big yellow leather boots and said, "I couldn't help but notice how much I want to fuck your feet." My fight or flight kicked in. I slapped him in the face and stood up to walk away. I was very uncomfortable. I wasn't afraid just because of the sheer amount of people around. As I was walking away, I could hear him laughing. "I'm trying to decide if I want to keep your feet after I cut the rest of your sexy body up into little pieces." I still hear it in my mind play out as clear as day. I walked away very quickly as I attempted to search for my sister on the dance floor from above. I couldn't find her anywhere. I decided to take my phone out to text her just to see I had missed a call from her. I was out of eyeshot from the dude and cut away to the bathroom so I could call her back. It was still pretty loud in there, but it wasn't loud enough where she couldn't hear me on the phone. I went into a stall and called her back. As I was in the stall, I heard the bathroom door slowly open, and someone went into the one directly next to me. I was waiting for her to pick up when I looked down underneath the stall and saw those same very distinct yellow leather boots. He was just standing there next to me. I felt like I was about to die. I knew he knew I was in there. I held my breath and hung up the phone, just staring at those shoes, not moving a single bit from when he shut the door. I heard the main bathroom door open again, and I immediately ran out the stall, out the door, and straight to outside the club without slowing down once. I was terrified. It just so happened my sister was close to where I came out, trying to ask me if I was ready to leave. I told her we needed to get back as soon as possible. We got back to the room safely, and I told her everything that happened. She suggested calling the police, but I just really wanted to drop it. We changed our flight and the next night flew back home. I searched for a few years pretty actively online for arrests in the area to see if he would ever come up. He never did. After a few years, I moved on mentally and got over it for the most part. It was hands down the scariest moment in my life. I don't know who this guy was, or if he was saying things to scare me, or if he was completely serious. This story is not one where I was the target of someone's stalking or harassment, but one where I was the person who was in the right place at the right time. I'm fairly certain my inadvertent intervention may have saved someone I'd never met from, well, who knows what. This happened back in 2015 or 2016, I'd say. I'm a career tow truck driver. At this point, I've been towing cars for most of my adult life, and will likely do so until either I retire or die, whichever comes first. At the time, I was working for a pretty small towing company with only 2 employees. We rotated out who was on call each weekend. It just so happened it was my weekend on call. It was summer, so with people being out and about late and whatnot, I was pretty busy. Cleaning up accidents, towing broken down cars both in the city and off the highway. I was fine with it, as I was paid commission at the time, so the more calls I took, the more money I made. It was a Saturday night, now Sunday morning. It was around 2 or 3 o'clock. Like I said, I had been very busy. I was tired, a little grumpy, and kinda wanted to just go home when my phone rang. It was an insurance company, calling and asking if we could do a tow for one of their customers who had broken down on the side of the highway. The breakdown location they gave me was about 15 miles out of town. I normally wouldn't do something so far, but it just so happened the tow destination was next to a dealership that was only a couple of minutes away from my apartment. I contemplated rejecting the call for a moment, but because I'm paid commission, I figured screw it. I can run up, grab this car, drop it off around the corner from my place, and then hopefully head straight home, get a couple hours of quality shut-eye. I took the call and hopped on the highway. The insurance company provided me with the customer's first name, which we'll say was Kara for the purposes of this story. They also gave me a phone number for her. Normally, I usually try to make contact with people who are on the side of the highway to let them know I'm on my way and give them an ETA. I tried calling her a few times, but she did not answer. Not totally unusual. After a short while, I saw hazard lights up the way on the shoulder, so I turned on my strobes and started slowing down. As I approached closer, I noticed that not only is there the late model car that I'm looking for, but there was also another car on the scene as well that didn't have its hazards on. It was parked in front of the car I was meant to tow. This is annoying but not uncommon, as I need to be able to get in front of the disabled car in order to load it, and sometimes people don't realize that. Because the other car is there, I pulled up behind both cars. You do this so that as the tow driver, you're the one that has to make the weird maneuver of pulling off the shoulder and back onto the shoulder, and the other car can just drive straight forward. Otherwise, if I pulled up front, then the other car would have to go around me. It's unprofessional and unsafe to make customers do that. Standing at the trunk of the late model car, which was now directly in front of me, was a man and a woman. The woman was probably in her early 20s and dressed to the nines for a night out. She was about 5'1" or 5'2", wearing tight leatherish pants, a halter top, long black hair, and was generally very pretty. The man was probably around 5'10" and skinny, maybe 150 or 160 pounds, wearing a dark hoodie and dirty jeans. They were very close, facing each other. She had her arms crossed and he was leaning down to talk to her. I stepped out of my truck and approached them both. They separate a few feet. I looked at the woman and said, "Are you Kara?" She nodded and I said I was there from her insurance company. I asked what was going on with the car. Immediately, the man piped up and said, "Yeah, it's just having some fuel issues. Easy fix. Can you just drop it off at this commuter parking lot? I'm gonna fix it for her there." I was rather annoyed by this. The commuter lot in question was further up the highway, and I was already 15 miles out of town. I really wanted to go home. Not only that, but in order to change the original tow destination, I would have to call the insurance company back, wait on hold for who knows how long for a representative, then let them know of the change and try to get them to pay me extra for the deadhead miles back home after unloading. I really didn't want to go through all that. Thirdly, this was a late model car. Now, I'm no mechanic, but I knew it was new enough that whatever was wrong with it was likely still covered under warranty. The dealership would be the best place to go anyway. I explained all this to the man, but he was really not having it. He got stern with me. "Look, man, you just need to take the car where I tell you to take it." We went back and forth on this for maybe 60 seconds, him getting madder all the while. "Well, you know what, man, you're not the named insured. Kara is. The easy way to settle this is to ask what she wants me to do with the car, and whatever she says, I'll do. Fingers crossed she'll want me to take it to the dealership." I turned to look at Kara to ask her that question. I didn't see her right away. She was no longer standing where she was just a minute ago, which was slightly off to my right. I continued not to see her until I turned all the way around, because she was standing directly behind me. And by directly, I mean within an inch of my back, arms still crossed. I looked down at her, and she locked eyes with me. Her eyes were as wide as plates, almost owl-like. Immediately, it felt like she was staring into my soul. She didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. I took a step back and did what felt like a double take. I looked at him, then her, then him again. It slowly started to dawn on me that maybe something wasn't quite right here. "Hey, do you know this guy?" She ever so slightly shook her head no. The expression on her face when I asked her that will forever be burned in my skull. I immediately turned to the guy. "Hey, you gotta go, man." Now, I'm not a tough guy. I'm a total beta male if there is such a thing, and I don't care who knows it. I've got nothing to prove to anyone. I'm super averse to confrontation and will run at the first sign of trouble. I'm not exactly big either. I'm 5'8", have a bit of a gut, but also big thighs and broad shoulders. People are generally surprised to find out I weigh as much as I do. I think that might have been my saving grace for what happened next. Without another word, the guy started to move for Kara. I moved to stay in between them. He tried to push me out of his way by shoving me in the chest. He only pushed me hard enough to make me take a single step back. Immediately, I took a step forward and body checked him as hard as I could, hard enough to knock him over onto his ass. Kara was now in front of me to my right, somewhat between me and the guy who was trying to scramble to his feet. I reached up and snatched the poor girl by her waist, spun her towards my truck, and yelled for her to get into the driver's side. I turned back to the guy, who was standing up again at this point, breathing heavily. He got right up in my face. I stared him down and mustered up the best dad voice I could. "You need to go." I was shaking. I was terrified. I didn't know if he had a weapon. I didn't know if he was going to try to fight me or stab me. I didn't know what I would do if he did. Like I said, I'm not a tough guy. I don't even know how to fight. I've never even been in a fight in my whole life. What if I get badly hurt? What do I even do now? I just wanted to go home. I wasn't even going to take this damn call. All of this was running through my head at lightning speed. After 15 seconds or so, which felt like eons, he huffed a bit, smiled one of the creepiest smiles I'd ever seen, and started to back off. Sucking his teeth and rubbing his hands together, he slowly walked backwards a few steps, then made his way to the front car, got in, and drove off. I stayed motionless watching him until I could no longer see his taillights. I got Kara's car loaded up onto the tow truck. As we made our way to the dealership, she told me through tears that her car had shut off while she was driving. She had pulled onto the shoulder and called her parents because she was on their insurance. Her parents made the call to the company, who eventually dispatched me to her location. While she was there waiting for me, a bit after she'd made the call, some random guy pulled up in front of her and walked to her passenger side window to try and talk to her. She told him she was fine, that a tow truck was coming, and that she didn't need help. He persisted. She tried to tell him off and eventually tried to roll up the window. He stuck his arm in the window and unlocked the door, then pulled it open. In fear, she jumped out and left her phone inside and ran to the back of her car. He started getting pretty lewd with her, and whenever she tried to go back to her car, he would prevent her from getting in physically. Several minutes later, I finally showed up. Who knows what would have happened had the timing been any different. Her parents were waiting at the dealership when we arrived, and she told them what just happened. Her parents gave me a $20 tip, which was all the cash they had on them at the time. She gave me a very tight and clearly heartfelt hug before I left. I never saw her again after that. I tell you what, every guy has daydreamed at some point of coming to the rescue of a pretty girl in trouble, myself included. You think you're gonna be a hero, that you're gonna be the cat's ass, you're gonna slay the dragon and get the girl and ride off into the sunset like the king you are. But for me, being in that situation, in the moment, it was one of the most terrifying feelings I've ever had in my life. Forced into a confrontation I didn't want nor was prepared for, not knowing what to expect from a clearly not well-hinged individual. I didn't feel like the cat's ass. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a scared little kid encountering a bully on the playground for the first time. I know now for the future, though, that if I'm ever in a situation like that, I will never not intervene. I just really hope I don't have to again. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the content of this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do decide you like my content enough to subscribe, please be sure to hit the bell button right next to the subscribe button and turn notifications to all so you can be notified of every video I post in the future. If you don't feel like doing that though, I post a video nearly every day, so you can just come back every now and then and check up on what you missed. If you guys have any criticisms on what I can do better or any feedback on the stories in the video, please be sure to leave them in the comments below, as I always enjoy reading all the comments and I try to give them hearts and respond when I can. If you guys would like to reach me for any reason, or you would like to send in a story to be read, you can go ahead and take a look in the description below the video. You'll find a link to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has a theme, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. Last but not least, I also run two other channels, Mr. Blue Skies and Darkest Hour, where I do true crime videos and dark documentaries respectively. If that kind of content sounds interesting to you, why not go ahead and check it out and see if it is for you. Aside from that though, guys, I think that's pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.